and welcome to the latest episode of Guitar Beasts. Today I'm introducing a new era in guitar technology. This is my Hopf Twisty. Now, for this guitar we need to delve back into the depths of guitar making history. It's a fascinating story, especially in Germany in the Beat era, 50s, 60s. There were many brands that were building these really funky, esoteric, quite quirky looking guitars that you feel like maybe they're just copying Fender, getting on the bandwagon. Well, the Hopf family dates back to 1669 as a stringed instrument manufacturer. So the history goes, 1669, Caspar Hopf, H-O-P-F, started a violin building luthier company in the Vogtland, on the border between Germany and Czechoslovakia. At that time, there were lots of stringed instrument manufacturers who had been driven out of various places, the Bohemians, for fleeing the Counter-Reformation. Then the Germans were driven out of Czechoslovakia, and just by kind of coincidence or chance or good fortune, there seemed to be a conglomeration, a concentration of stringed instrument and instrument manufacturers in this area in sort of, I think it's Franken in southern Germany. And it's actually a famous area now. It's known as the Musikwinkel, which can be loosely translated as the music corner. And it's kind of centered around towns like Markneukirchen. And so a lot of these really funky kind of 60s, 50s German electric guitars from brands like Musima, Clearer, Migma, Hopf, I think Hoyer, even Hofner, I think, has its roots in that region. And just fascinatingly, almost all of them have this kind of lineage that went back decades, centuries even, building stringed instruments. And so it's kind of fascinating how the guitar has evolved from violins. Obviously, you know, if you see archtop guitars with the F holes, you even see the headstock on a Stratocaster is essentially, I mean, to my eyes, that's the head of a violin. You know, I'm assuming that's where the idea came from. So when you see these kind of German beat era guitars that took the success of the electric guitar and then took it to another kind of futuristic, funky, alternate dimension kind of reality. You know, you see the headstock on this guitar, it's clearly influenced by the Stratocaster, but it's taken to a sort of abstract, minimalist, postmodern almost, or modernist perhaps, degree. So you think, you know, perhaps they were just kind of bandwagoning, but no, you know, this family, the Hopf family, 1669, started by Caspar Hopf, and it was consistently, the family business was passed down and taught from father to son, right the way up to the present day, except for one occasion in the mid-19th century, I think, where Augustus Hopf died early, but nevertheless his son, who was 2 years old when his father died, obviously felt the weight of history on his shoulders and learned the family trade and continued it. His son Willy and his brother Wolfgang then established the electric guitar brand. And in 1932, I think, and then 1948, after the Second World War, and Markneukirchen, this region is in the former, what is now the former East Germany. So a lot of the companies moved out of there to escape the planned economy from the communists. They didn't want the private companies to be nationalized, so moved into West Germany. So the Hopf company now still makes guitars in Hessen, in former West Germany. So it's a fascinating history, and I just wanted to touch on that because I'm planning to show a few of my 60s and 50s German guitars, which I think are wonderful. You look at them; they have this kind of futuristic aesthetic. You know, if you think back to the aesthetic back then, it was, you know, the space race, and people were dreaming of space travel and living on the stars and stuff. And it's reflected in the names. There's a Hopf Saturn is one of the Hopf guitars, and you know, that's one of my favorite guitars is my Hofner Galaxy. But this is called the Hopf Twisty, which sort of pretty much sums up its quite quirky shape and design. Has this lovely single coil pickup, which was basically stock, and this particular example has a Relog neck pickup, which I believe is an aftermarket add-on. I don't think it came stock with this guitar, but you know, these were put out as pickups that people could attach to their archtop guitars so that they could electrify them at the time when guitar music was transitioning from acoustic guitars to electric guitars. And another feature of this guitar is this really funky kind of metallic finish. It's kind of got a hammered metal effect to it, which gives it just this kind of really cool spacey look to it. And this is something you see on quite a lot of these Beat era German guitars, some kind of covering with a binding to hold it together, either a vinyl or sort of faux leather covering. You would be forgiven for thinking that that is perhaps to disguise cheap wood materials underneath, but I don't believe that that's the case. I think that the Hopf family tradition were very proud of their materials. One feature on this guitar, for example, is on the back it says here, patented ever straight neck by Hopf. So they had patented this design to, it's quite difficult to see, but the neck is made up of many thinly sliced pieces of wood all put together. So okay, you think plywood, but these have been specifically selected according to the patented technology, that the pieces of wood all have fibers in the same direction in order not to dampen the tone response of the tone wood in the neck. And that was their patented technology. It's kind of easier to see here on the side as you see all of the slices coming off. So yeah, that's an interesting little thing, and it tends to suggest that they were thinking about the wood that they were using. I don't know, I've seen this effect on Hofner guitars for sure. I heard a story once that after the Second World War, wood was a resource that was not in abundance, and certainly Hofner were using aircraft propellers for the necks on their guitars, because the jet engine had been built and aircrafts with propellers had become to some extent obsolete, so it was a source of wood. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but it could be apocryphal, but it's an interesting little story. Another little thing on this guitar, it doesn't have a modern day 1/4-inch guitar input jack, but it has what is called a DIN 3-pin, which I fortunately have a converted 3-pin plug for this, so we can have a listen to this little guitar. Plugging it in to my So I'm plugging it into my Ecolette, which is also a vintage German valve amplifier. So these guitars, you know, you can imagine they were rocking out the clubs in Europe in the 50s, 60s, you know, the kind of guitars that the Beatles would have come across when they were in Hamburg. In fact, I think that it might even be a Hopf Saturn, which is the guitar that is pictured on the Star Club doorway in Hamburg on the Reeperbahn. I need to check that fact. But yeah, so listen to this. You can instantly hear that kind of 50s twang that, you know, people were going for, and still sounds modern and relevant today as well. So yeah, there you have it, the Hopf Twisty, which is was my introduction to classic vintage German beat era guitars, and so I'm going to hopefully shed some light on some of the other ones in my collection in other episodes. But I hope you enjoyed hearing this one. Thanks for listening.
God save the king, kiss the golden ring. God save the king, and bite every